Welcome back, folks. Good to see you. You don't see me, I can't see you. Today's video, we are going to go over how to lay out, measure, calculate, and cut roof trusses for a simple A-frame roof. This is going to be for a porch project we're starting, so I'm going to cut out everything here. Then I'm going to go to the job site, cut beam pockets in the wall, and install it. So it's just easier for me to do it here. I just make a little package out of it, take it to the job site, put it together. But this would work on any roof that you're getting ready to build, as long as it's a typical A-frame roof. I'm going to show you how to make the calculations, what to look out for, and hopefully by the end of this video you know how to lay out and cut a roof. Let's get started. Okay, I'm going to try to give you an idea of what we're building here. These plans, for whatever reason, printed real light. I think I should have, when I was drawing these up, I should have switched the ink and maybe forgot to, from a color to all black before it was printed. But anyway, besides it, you can see what we're building here. I'm hoping you can see that. A simple porch roof on the front of the house. And it's going to have a little bit of a barrel vault in it. So I want to give you an idea of what it is we were after. So maybe these calculations and all will make more sense. That's what I'm trying to do. So let me draw a little picture on this piece of paper and we'll get started measuring. Okay, what I'm using here is an old Construction Master calculator. Geez, I've had that thing for a long time, but prior to that, everything had to be in decimal points, and you have to flip-flop the decimal points back to inches and fractions of an inch. This put an end to that. I'm gonna be using this calculator. You should be able to find this online to make these calculations very, very simply. So the only thing we need right off the get-go is we've established, here's just a crude drawing of our roof. So we got 2x8s. I have a 2x12 ridge. This is our beam. As you see in the drawing, we will end up with this will be squared and we'll have a arch top to it. Barrel vault, whatever you want to call it. So the first thing you want to do is calculate the width of your wall outside to outside, or whatever the defining width is, whatever that needs to be. That's what we need to start with. In this case, it's 59 inches. The ridge is going to be sitting center of our span, so it's 29.5 on each side. We're going to use an 8 and 12 pitch. So that means for every foot this rafter runs, it jumps 8 inches. If it was a stair step, it would look like that. Over 12, up 8. Over 12, up 8. And if you connect the dots, you would get the slope of the roof. And that 8 and 12 pitch is because that's what's on the existing house. That's what we're going to measure. Okay, let's see what we got here. We have a 20, let's clear it out good, 29 and 1/2 inch run, an 8 inch pitch, hit the diagonal, 35 and 7/16. Okay, we'll do that again real quick, make sure we get the same number. 29 inch, whoops, 29 in run, 8 inch pitch, gives us a diagonal, 35 7/16. That's always a good thing when you get the same number twice. Now, this is what you need to consider. The 35 and 7/16 is calculated from this point. From this point with an 8-inch pitch. Okay, it's not out here anywhere. It's off of this because this is half of our center. We're going from this outside to this outside. So when you lay this out, you need to make an imaginary line. Use your pocket square or whatever. Now where that center line and that line come together, that's going to be how we mark it. So I hope that makes sense. This bird's mouth, we'll set that up first. Leave plenty of overhang, we'll cut that. And then I'll show you how we need to leave bits and pieces off in order to make that work. So I'm gonna grab a 2x8 and we'll get rolling on it. Okay, one more time before we start laying this rafter off, let's go over this one more time. This formula that we're figuring is nothing more than a triangle, okay? So we know we got this outside dimension that's given, that's in stone, we can't change that, and we know that we have this 8 and 12 pitch. So when we do this calculation, it is from this point to this point. And then you have this, again, this imaginary line up through here that comes to the center of the ridge. Okay, there's our triangle. Okay, so what we need to do when we lay this ridge out is we need to compensate for half of this. Lay this raft out. We need to compensate for half of this ridge. Okay. We need to compensate for the whatever we're going to use as a material here for the fascia board. And so I think the easiest way for me to lay this out is going to be to start here at the bottom, and then I can show you what the deal is. So Lisa's going to be our camera woman. Okay, first off, let's look at this. Come close. I got a frame square that I've had for eons with a couple of, I'm not going to tell you what we call them, but the stair gauge. This is set at 8 and 12. So if you look at this, come above. You see the 12 is there, the 8's over here, okay? Both of those are on the outside of the square. Those numbers have to be on the either the outside or the inside of the square in order to work. And these stair gauges, if you look, let me see that real quick. You see that? 12 is set right there, but you see how far back that stair gauge is? It's because that stair gauge is touching the wood down there. Uh-oh, here comes trouble. You got a
Here on the street.
Anyway, the same thing on the 8. You see that 8? It's right on the edge of the wood. The stair gauge is out a little bit because it's touching the wood below. Okay, one more note on this framing square is the short leg that's marked on 8. That represents our plumb cut. And the 12 obviously represents our level cut. So if we were to put this to the edge of the board like so, then this long leg here would represent our level cut. This one here would represent our plumb cut. So we're going to set up and we're going to lay the overhang off here. And then I'm going to show you how to calculate the length. And then we'll start cutting. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark a plumb cut for our overhang. So make sure that both of them are hitting the edge of the board. There's our plumb cut. We're going to use a 2x6 as fascia on here. This leg is 1.5 inches, so we're going to mark that. That will represent our fascia board. So this part here is our fascia, which means we're going to cut here. Okay? Secondly, we want to figure the length of the overhang So when we figure this, we need to be square off of this line. So this wants to be 10 3/4. And you could do this, you see what I'm saying? This needs to be square. Need some octopus arms. And we're gonna mark the end of this stick rule right there. Okay? I'm gonna move you up so you can see a little bit. So again, we're gonna mark a plumb cut there. Okay? Square off of there for the 3.5 inches for our top plate. Okay? The best way to show you, let's try it like this. That represents our bird's mouth. So this is where it's going to be sitting on the beam. Okay, if you looky here, we have 3.5 inches. So that's the first part of laying this off. We got our fascia board marked, 10 3/4 for the overhang. We got our bird's mouth. Now we need to calculate the length. All right, you can see with our frame and square, we got our 8 12 pitch marked here. We're gonna have a 2x6 fascia. So we're gonna come down the outside from this top 5.5 inches, because that's what our fascia board is. Okay. Just roll the square over and we can get our horizontal cut, level cut. So we're going to cut here, here. This represents the 2x6 fascia board on the front. So everything beyond this line is waste. Just a quick recap. If you measure to the front of that 2x6 to where our bird's mouth starts, we got 10 3/4, and this is where the face of the beam sets. Okay, all plumb cuts. And then we want 3.5 inches. We don't want to take a bunch out of here. We'll weaken the rafter. We have 3.5 inches here for it to sit on a 2x4 plate. Drawing here, this is what we just laid out. We got, that's our 2x6. We got 10 3/4 to here, edge of our beam. We got 3.5 inches here for our top plate. Okay, so we want the bottom side of this rafter to intersect with the back side of that plate. We don't want it out here. We don't want it in here. We want it to come right to that. And then you can see from before, this is where our little triangle starts. So we have to go right here because this represents the outside of that little piece of triangle, and we're going to come and draw a line all the way up here to the center so we can get the location and length for our ridge. So I'm going to just draw a light pencil line up through here. That's our triangle. The length of our rafter is 35 7/16. Again, we're on our triangle. Make sure I'm on the money down here. So we got 35 7/16. Just put that over here where I can see it. There's the top point of our triangle. So we take our framing square and we slide it up until it hits at 35 7/16 in our triangle line. And we put a mark. Now keep in mind that's representing the center of the ridge. So our ridge is a 2x12, 1.5 inches wide. So we need to come off of this center mark, square, three-quarters of an inch, and that 3/4 represents 1/2 of the ridge. Because this is the center, so we'll pull 3/4 off this side, 3/4 off that side, and our ridge should stay to the center. Tony's here bringing me some firewood. So we're going to cut here and here. I hope that makes sense so far. You could use a speed square to do this. I'm just accustomed to a framing square. So we're going to cut this thing out. Okay, so I went ahead and cut these 2x8s on my chop saw. They're just 8/12 pitch, just short of 34 degrees. And so we can check this on the table. I can show you essentially what we've been measuring. So here you see I have this in place as the thickness of our ridge, okay? Rafter on both sides. And if I take my stick rule and lay where the cutout is to be here at 0, and then come down at this end, and you'll see where that cutout is, 59 inches, which is what the width of our porch should finish. So we're spot on with them. I'm gonna go ahead, cut the bird's mouth out, cut the overhang height off where the 2x6 goes, and then we'll set it back up here and double check it again. All right, we're gonna go over this math one more time, so make sure that I've explained it as, I guess, clear as I can. So let's just check this out. Again, this span here is the width of your building divided in half. Half here, half here. Okay? That is our run. Our rise over here is 8 and 12, so every 12 inches that this rafter travels, it rises 8. So if it was on a stair-step situation, it would be 12 up 8 over 12 up 8. And if you connected those lines, that would be your slope. Our ridge board, our overhang. So you see the oddball shape that a rafter's cut, okay? You can see that our calculations are going to be from the span, right, to the rise. This bird's mouth is calculated by the top plate of your wall. In this case, it's 3.5 inch. Typical, but these days it could be 2x6, it could be anything. So then this imaginary line comes in, and we just, on our first rafter, we just draw the line so we can get our measurement. I always lay my overhang off first, make sure my rafter's long enough, but lay my overhang off first, and that will give me this point right here. And if I run parallel to the edge of the board all the way up, I can get this 35 and 7/16 here. So I hope I hope that makes sense. And draw down on a piece of paper and do some calculations on your own to start with, and make sure it works. But it's not that, once you get the concept, it's not that difficult. So I'm gonna set up the chop saw, cut some of these out, and then we'll double check our measurement, and we'll put this thing together and you can see what it looks like. Okay, I got this rafter cut out. Here's a bird's mouth, fascia board. This is cut off for the overhang. And what I did is just screwed a couple scraps to the top. So we take this out here to our stock, lay it on top. You don't spend a whole bunch of time trying to line up the edges of the board. Just slide it over till the scrap hits. Mark your board and move on down the line. Okay, let me show you what we got going on here. And before you think I'm crazy, I think I got this all figured out. But we've got our roof trusses in place. This 2x4 will sit on top of the beam that will be attached to the house, have a post at the other end. And this might make it a little bit easier for you to understand Here's our wall outside, or what would be a wall. Over there is the other one. That's our span. So you can see when we make these calculations, that's where our imaginary line's going up through there. That's where we get the measurements for that triangle. But what we're gonna do is put some collar ties in here, and then we're gonna fabricate the round pieces to make the barrel vault. And when we go to install this, I've got 2 screws under the gable here, and I've got a couple up here at the top, and this gable will roll right off of there. We'll put the main section of the roof up there on top of the beam, secure it in place, then we'll roll the gable up on top of that and re-secure it. And that just saved me about 200 trips up and down the ladder. But this is all ready to, pretty much all ready to put in place and finish. And it'd be very difficult to frame it that accurately, going up and down the ladder. I mean, I've done it 1,000 times, but I figured I'd give it a shot like this one time. So I'm gonna lay out and start cutting these collar ties, and then we'll figure out how we're gonna do that barrel vault. Okay, so I got a little jig set up here to cut the rafters to make the barrel vault. And after looking at this, you can see the pencil line on the gable. I'm gonna shorten that by about 2.5 inches because I think it needs to be just a little bit higher. But you can see I got this stick set here on my radius to trace the underside of where this barrel vault's going to be. Down here it will butt the beam. Up here it will screw to the underside of the rafter, or it actually can go onto the side of the rafter, either one. It's just going to hold the beaded vinyl ceiling that we're going to put in here. And keep in mind that we have to have a collar tie across here on each one of them. So let me go ahead and mark that, get the center, and we'll cut it out and see how it fits. And this little piece of porch is very accurate, so I should be able to cut that out, flip it over, use it on the left and right, both. Use it as a pattern to make all the ones I need to create this barrel vault. So let me mark that out and see what happens. I'm just gonna set this pencil right on top of that stick and trace my line. You can see we got a simple line there to scribe. I'll mark the center there and a plumb cut. Where my beam meets it there, a plumb cut, and then we'll cut that out and see what it looks like. Okay, this looks pretty good. If you can look right here, this beam is going to end up this wide, so it can accommodate this post cap. Only it's going to be down in this area, and then up on the side will be a piece of 1x and a little knee wall built to give the beam the width required to hold this cap. So, and then you can see where I have this, you can see where I have this radius laid out. That's how much I'm gonna shorten the front gable. I just wanted a little bit, I want the arch a little bit more pronounced. So we're gonna make another one of these, and then we're gonna lay it on the other side and make sure everything fits. And then we're gonna have to cut out a bunch of them. At that point, I'll go ahead and I'll clamp them all together, take a belt sander, ease them so they're all the same, and that part should be done. Then we'll move on to the collar ties. Okay, so I got all my barrel vault pieces clamped up here, and I'm gonna take this belt sander, flatten them out. They're pretty good as they are, but I'm gonna just hit it light and just smooth them out a little bit, and they'll be ready to put in. There you can see that does a pretty good job of slicking that out, which means all of our sealing should be pretty consistent. So let me do that, and then we'll move on to the next part of the project. Okay, here we go. You can see that looks pretty good, especially for framing. So that's done. Okay, let's see, I used my stick from a radius here to set the center of this collar tie. Even the distance, I ended up with like a 7 1/16 block on each side. So that's what I'm using to hold them where I want them. And then just cut a little bit short of the roof rafter there so it doesn't stick up and hit the plywood or something like that. And like I say, all this stuff, I can take as much of this apart as I want, depending on how much help I got. But the plan is to unscrew the gable and let the gable fall forward, lift the main piece of roof up onto the beams once the beams are set, and then roll the gable up in place.